I'm here with Colin. We're drinking Zimas, and we're talking about Blade Runner. It tastes like the 90s. So, Colin, we're here to talk about Blade Runner.
Yes.
This is a film that you love, right?
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't love Blade Runner?
Well, this is a film we've joked about. That's Rich Evans. This
Sorry,
one.
what?
There's other people around.
Oh.
They're like, they hear Blade Runner and it's like they crawl out of corners to say, oh, that movie's fucking boring.
Well, you know.
But no, we've made fun of this film many times.
When the deadly ghost sailors led by the terrifying Captain Salazar, Javier Bardem, escaped.
It's so boring, I feel like I'm watching Blade Runner.
And every time we do, people get very mad at us because
well, you know.
Blade Runner, it's kind of become one of those movies that's just objectively good.
Yeah.
It's like trying to criticize The Wizard of Oz, or people are like, are you an asshole? Like, it's great. Everybody loves it.
It's one of these films that, like, I kind of, like, over the years just assumed that everybody kind of liked, because it's like a sci-fi classic.
Yeah.
And it's like Aliens or something like that, and then you hear people, like, talking shit about it, and it's like, what? Wait a minute.
It's definitely a movie. There's never been another movie that I've wanted to love as much as this one.
Okay.
I rewatch it every couple years in hopes that it'll finally click. And every time I watch it, I appreciate some aspect of it just a tiny bit more.
Sure.
So I think in another 20 to 30 years, I may love it.
Okay.
But Colin, what is Blade Runner about?
Well, Blade Runner, okay, it's set in the future world of 2019.
Yes,
Jay.
the far distant future,
Los
2 years
Angeles,
from now.
2019.
Everything's owned by Coca-Cola and Atari.
And Zima.
There's Zima ads.
They'll still be
there?
drinking Zima in the future. In the future, there's these things called replicants, which are kind of like genetically engineered slave labor. They're humans. And they're used like on the off-world colonies to do like jobs that humans don't want to do, like kind of like scoping out planets for colonization, doing shitty jobs like working as prostitutes, that sort of thing. They've been banned. They've been made illegal on Earth because of like, you know, a couple of them went rogue and like killed like 26 people or something like that. And when they are on Earth, they have these Blade Runner units, which are just like cops that hunt them down and kill them. The opening crawl kind of ends with it saying that it's not execution, it's called retirement. So Harrison Ford is basically one of these Blade Runners. You know, the film opens with him getting called back into action by his old boss.
Got the wrong guy, pal.
Lofa, Nehojma, te vaya Blade Runner.
He say you Blade Runner.
Very classic kind of film noir cop stuff.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
being called back into action to take care of this job.
He's retired. He's sort of out of the business. We don't know why or when it happened or how long he's been, you know, whatever. But he gets called back into action. There's like these 4 replicants that have gone rogue. They're back on Earth. He's got to hunt them down and kill them.
It's very clear cut as far as like there's these 4 replicants.
Yeah.
You are in charge of killing them.
They were designed to copy human beings in every way except their emotions. And the designers reckoned that after a few years, they might develop their own emotional responses. Oh, hate, love, fear, anger, envy. So they built in a fail-safe device.
Which is what?
4-year lifespan.
It is probably the best special effects movie ever made in the pre-digital era.
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
This is a masterpiece on a technical level.
This is something that I think almost like overshadows every other part of the movie. It's just like the visuals.
Yeah, the vision of the future and the way the special effects are utilized, like the miniatures.
It's like
you probably know all about that stuff. Don't
Yeah,
you?
of course. It's like insane. So it's like, you know, even like watching it a few days ago on Blu-ray, it's just incredible, like how good it looks.
Well, some of it I'm assuming was enhanced for the final edit, right?
There's only a couple of things, and it's only sort of like little mistakes or things like, you know, where the sort of flying cars are hovering and they just sort of digitally erase the wires.
Well, we should mention that we're talking about the final cut because there's
well, it depends. Yeah, there's
27 different edits of this movie.
I would say like 46. They have like every different version. It's like, you know, they have the version that Ridley Scott showed his buddies, like one weekend when he was drunk. Yeah. They had like, they did like the title card in like different fonts.
Is there a Comic Sans version?
Oh, absolutely. It's on. What version did you get? It comes with them all.
I feel like that's any version that now 80-something-year-old Ridley Scott talks about. That's
Holy
the Comic
Jesus
Sans
Christ.
version.
Oh my God.
Which, for anyone that isn't aware, the theatrical version, the studio was concerned that people wouldn't be able to understand what was happening in the movie. So they brought in Harrison Ford to record a bunch of like voiceover, like film noir
Against
voiceover.
his will. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently I've never seen that version, but I know he's like basically just like
Purposely
sleepwalking.
screws it up.
Sushi. That's what my ex-wife called me. Cold fish.
I guess it's like a trope of like, detective.
Well, that's why I
fiction.
think it's interesting, and I've never seen that version, but I know everybody hates it because they like the more ambiguous version. But like, I can see that working because the movie has a very sort of film noir element to it.
It does, yes. Like actually, yeah, it's totally like a sci-fi noir. But he was against doing the narration, the voiceover, and he purposely read it horribly so they wouldn't use it.
Sure.
In the hopes that they wouldn't use it. But they did.
Yeah.
They don't advertise for killers in a newspaper. That was my profession. Ex-Blade Runner.
Part-time.
Later on, I think it was like in the early 90s or something like that, probably 91, they came out with the director's cut. He'd removed the narration, and it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But then he'd also added in this unicorn scene. And it was kind of like unused footage from Legend that Ridley Scott had directed.
So what you're saying is this wasn't part of his vision of Blade Runner from the start?
No.
Are you saying that Ridley Scott is a hack?
I'm saying, well, okay, we'll get to Ridley Scott in a second.
His
Sir Ridley.
The Ridley
by the way.
Scott aspect of the movie is very important
Yeah.
to kind of deciphering the movie. So
Yeah.
so he took unused footage from Legend and
From
just
Legend,
threw it in the
unicorn.
film.
Because at the very end of the film, when they're leaving Deckard's apartment, and he's got Sean Young, and he kind of looks down and he finds this origami unicorn.
Yeah.
That Edward James Olmos has left for him. Edward James Olmos' character Gaff throughout the movie makes these little kind of like origami pieces or whatever. So it's sort of implying that I was here. I know you've got Sean Young. I didn't kill her, but I'm going to give you a head start, kind of thing. I was here and I'm letting you go.
Yeah. Well, the implication with adding footage from an unrelated movie. That he just threw in the film.
Yeah.
The implication is that Deckard himself, the man who tracks and kills replicants, may be a replicant himself.
Not only maybe.
Well, the final cut makes it pretty much like, well, and according to Ridley Scott himself, he's a replicant at the behest of everybody else involved.
I'm doing
with
a
the
lot
film.
of eye rolling here.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the movie falls apart for me, and why I find it incredibly boring.
Right.
Is knowing that Ridley Scott, in his mind, Deckard is a replicant. It's like, okay, then why do I care about anything in this movie?
Yeah, I think that's just one of those like things that over the years he kind of came up with, like.
Even as an ambiguous idea, like even if he wasn't so overt about it, and it was supposed to be ambiguous, to me it's not interesting. The whole idea, the central idea of the movie is that Harrison Ford falls in love with Sean Young's character. Why? They have no chemistry whatsoever.
I want you. I want you.
Cold fish.
Well, this is interesting. Yeah, if you've ever like read anything about the behind the scenes on Blade Runner, it's a great, fantastic book called Future Noir. Sean Young and Harrison Ford hated one another. Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott did not get along during the making of this movie.
Well, Harrison Ford thinks the idea that Deckard's a replicant is stupid too.
As most people do. This is
the
kind of
writers
bullshit.
of the film.
Yeah, Hampton
the
Fancher.
original story it's based on.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
everyone, Deckard is not a replicant.
Totally, absolutely. Over the years, he just sort of got it in his head, like, hey, it would be neat if, Deckard was a replicant.
Yeah.
And
that seems where it's, in my mind, where it starts and ends. Where it's like he just had that idea and didn't think about how it would affect the entire rest of the movie.
Well, it doesn't really, and that's the thing. So basically, what he was saying, and it's like Hampton Fancher was interviewed, and he's like, No, I didn't. That wasn't the intention when I was writing the character. He was saying it's like there's a part in the movie where Rachel says to Deckard,
Have you ever retired a human by mistake?
No.
But in your position, that is a risk.
it's sort of like implying that, you know, maybe, you know, he could be in like what really separates the replicants from humans. It's like, you know, they have these sort of, she has like these fake memories.
Because she is a replicant and she acts like a robot, which also hinders the movie for me in that if the whole idea is like replicants are indistinguishable from people, but we have her acting very much like a robot, and then we have all the human characters also acting like robots. I mean, maybe you could say that's the point.
I don't know, like all the human
but
characters.
well, definitely Harrison Ford.
Implants. Those aren't your memories. They're somebody else's. They're Tyrell's nieces.
Okay. Bad joke. I made a bad joke. You're not a replicant.
Well, I think that's just his character. And
Sure.
Like Deckard, so we kind of like, just broken, cynical, just a sad person, very lonely. You kind of get this sort of like...
He has less humanity than the replicants.
Yeah, I guess that's the kind of reveal. But like you see his apartment is just like, you know, shitty and, you know, probably drinks way too much. Kind of like sadness, I think, about his character. That's what I kind of found interesting because you don't, you know, as I'm saying, it's like you're coming off of like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Harrison Ford. You know, the only movies that people knew him in were, you know, as Han Solo or Indiana Jones at that point.
Yeah.
And then you've kind of got this character who I think he brings a lot of vulnerability.
The whole thing is like the irony that it takes a replicant to make him sort of rediscover his humanity.
Yeah.
But you have him and the replicant have no chemistry whatsoever. I don't understand why she brings this out of him because they both kind of suck.
I think that maybe she's the sort of like instigation for him sort of like snapping out of it. Maybe he's sort of like caught in this sort of like dead end sort of loop in his life.
And as a character arc, that's great until you factor in that he's supposed to be a replicant.
Well,
and then that completely cancels that all out.
I'm just not even counting that because I think that's just something that really got in his head. It's like some fucking thing. And this was pretty much him like with the director's cut saying, okay, I'm going to put in this unicorn.
Yeah.
And it's like...
And everybody's telling him, no, Ridley, no. I'm doing it, damn it.
The writer
he's like
and
drunk
the
on the editing
Yeah, well,
bay.
they have no control because he's the only one making this thing. It's like Hampton Fancher's out of the picture. It's like Harrison Ford's long gone. He's like, I'm going to fucking put a unicorn in there. And it's like definitively say that, you know, he's a replicant. And it's just like, you can just see the writer just like, oh, for fuck's sake. But
well, I have a very, very recent quote from Ridley Scott about this whole thing.
Oh, my God.
So this is in regards to the new film, and because Harrison Ford's back,
yeah,
he's
this is very
older.
interesting.
So is he a replicant? Is he not?
And apparently, he and Harrison Ford got into it on the set of that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think to this day, like Harrison Ford still has a problem with it, as he should.
Well, I'm curious to see what they'll do with the new one.
I have no idea.
But this is a recent interview with Ridley Scott about the idea of Deckard being a replicant.
Okay.
Oh, it was always my theory. I remember someone had said, well, isn't it corny? I said, listen, I'll be the best fucking judge of that. I'm the director, okay? So, and that, you know, by then I'm 44, so I'm no fucking chicken. I'm the very experienced director from commercials and The Duelists and Alien. So I'm able to, you know, answer that with confidence at the time and say, you know, back off. It's what it's gonna be. I think Harrison was going, I don't know about that. I said, but you have to be, because Gaff, who leaves a trail of origami everywhere, will leave you a little piece of origami at the end of the movie to say, I've been here, I left her alive, and I can't resist letting you know what's in your most private thoughts when you get drunk as a fucking unicorn, right? So, I love Beavis and Butthead. So what should follow that is, duh. So now it will be revealed in the sequel, one way or the other.
What? Are you serious? Oh my God.
This is the director of Alien Covenant, by the way.
That took a left.
I think the whole thing is he just wanted to really let people know that he's a big fan of Beavis and Butthead.
Holy shit.
But this is the ramblings of a confused elderly filmmaker that doesn't understand his own movies.
Let's talk about Ridley Scott.
A la George Lucas. Thank you, Ridley Scott. I kind of tried to give some credit to Prometheus when it came out.
Sure, yeah.
Because everybody was shitting on that movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's some interesting things here. He's trying to do something.
Sure,
And visually, it's an amazing movie.
Absolutely.
So I was like, I'm going to give him some credit.
Yeah, it's probably, I think, a lot of his movies that do succeed kind of succeed in spite of
Yeah,
him.
and that's the interesting thing about Blade Runner is so many people talk about it as being this like brilliant film with all these themes about like identity and what it means to be a human.
Sure.
But it's like Ridley Scott is constantly trying to fuck that up.
The director Scott, with that stupid twist. I mean, like Deckard being a replicant, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like how would, he's apparently been doing this for years because he, when he goes back to meet Emmett Walsh, his boss.
Yeah.
He doesn't know he's a replicant, and then, Sean Young's character is introduced. She doesn't know she's a replicant, but she's like the latest model.
Yeah.
So Terrell's explaining this to Deckard.
She's beginning to suspect, I think.
Suspect? How can it not know what it is?
Commerce is our goal here at Tyrell. More human than human is our motto. Rachel is an experiment, nothing more.
And he says that we've created this new model that she's got this buffer, like these memories we've implanted, these fake memories.
And even old photos where she thinks it's her in the photo as a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so she's the latest model that has this, and it's like, what, Deckard was maybe just as advanced or more advanced way back in the day when he was like,
right.
It's
well,
like,
and also you have the other replicants, like they clearly, they're more human than human, as they say. You have one of the guys dips his hand into like freezing ice.
Well, they say in the opening crawl, it's like their agility, physical attributes are more enhanced than humans, but they kind of have the same IQ.
Sure, but then and then you have like Rutger Hauer at the end, who is really like the interesting character of the movie, more so than anyone else.
He's like the most sympathetic character of the movie.
Yeah, he's the best part. But when he at the end, Decker's hanging off the building, and he decides to like pull him up.
Yeah.
Like use like his superhuman
replicant
strength.
Well, he's like
to
a
pull him
combat
up.
model.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, this guy's stronger. If Decker's a replicant, he's just like a shitty replicant.
Yeah, of course, he's terrible. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So that is like a whole bunch of Ridley Scott gobbledygook.
But to me, that infects the entire movie. And maybe it's like if I'd seen the movie kind of before, like if I'd seen it completely pure,
it's possible. Like
it might have changed.
Just sort of, seeing the original version over the years. It's like in Canada, every year there's like this one channel on New Year's Eve. As soon as it turned midnight, they would always play Blade Runner. And it was always the theatrical cut. So we'd like seen that many times over the years.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe just seeing that and having it kind of ingrained. And then having all these different versions, like I just have a kind of different take on it. And I'm able to kind of like toss aside any kind of like BS.
I also think just like because of Harrison Ford's performance, because of the lack of chemistry between him and Sean Young, like it really kills any sort of momentum for me.
His performance, I think, is like, it's very underrated, and it's very, you know what I mean? It's like he like you're saying, he's coming off these charismatic characters like Indiana Jones and Han Solo, but I think people kind of shit on it because it's like, oh, he doesn't give a crap or whatever like that. But I think that's his character, and he brings some sort of interesting, like I'm saying, it's like there's a vulnerability to that character.
Can we talk about the scene leading up to him shooting her in the back? What's going on there?
Okay, so yeah.
This is baffling to me.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird one.
Excuse me, Miss Salome, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm from the American Federation of Variety Artists.
He's putting on a persona to interrogate her.
Sure.
He's investigating
some inspector.
If there's holes drilled into her dressing room.
Are you for real?
Oh yeah. I'd like to check your dressing room, if I may.
For what?
For holes.
Holes?
Well, you'd be surprised what a guy go through to get a glimpse of a beautiful body.
So
But
basically, yeah,
he's doing the whole thing in like this goofy voice.
goofy voice.
Why? She doesn't know who he is. He could just be himself.
Yeah, so like Harrison Ford. Well, I don't know if you know this, but he's like a master of comedy and physical comedy.
I've seen Hollywood Homicide.
Yeah, it's like, so, you know, he'd been huge influence on Jim Carrey, like as far as like, you know, voices,
Sure.
funny voices, pratfalls, that sort of thing. Physical comedy, I think, like Harrison Ford. Yeah, he's like an, you know, unsung genius. I would say.
Sure.
It's like the old school of like, you know, the kind of Jerry Lewis.
Anything else you want to?
No.
So we're finished. Sure. Thank you.
All right, clean it out of here.
So.
And all he does is make her very suspicious of him.
Absolutely.
And
it's like
it completely undermines the whole scene.
Completely. I'm like, you're the best, like, detective? It's like, why even bother doing that voice? It's like so terrible. My name's Pistachio Disguisey. Yeah, so that's a kind of weird scene. But I mean, it's just may come back to just the working experience he had, you know, working with Ridley Scott. Like I said, like they did not get on.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost seems like that scene, he's just doing it sarcastically. Like they're not gonna use this in the movie.
Yeah.
And there it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
And it's just like the narration.
Yeah.
It's like, what? You use that? Oh my God.
I'd quit because I'd had a belly full of killing.
I keep trying to get fired.
Fired.
It's not working.
It's not happening.
You Nexus, huh? I design your eyes.
Sure. If only you could see what I've seen with your eyes.
Well, let's talk about Rutger Hauer, because he's the real star of the movie.
Absolutely.
And in my recent rewatch, because like I said, every time I rewatch it, there's something about it I appreciate a little bit more. Rutger Hauer is so good in this movie, and I wish the entire thing was about him.
He's perfect.
Because this is a case of like, oh, this is an interesting story.
Yeah.
This replicant that kind of learns to understand humanity. And at the end of the movie, spoilers, he doesn't kill Harrison Ford when he has the chance to.
Saves him.
He saves him, yeah. And that's so much more interesting to me than the Harrison Ford character.
You've kind of got these two parallel stories going on in Blade Runner. So it's like Deckard kind of hunting down the replicants, and then you've got the replicants. Yeah, so their whole like kind of hunt is basically they want to meet Dr. Eldon Tyrell. He's like the creator, kind of head of the Tyrell Corporation. They want to meet their maker, meet their god, basically.
Right.
To see if they can extend their life. This kind of ties into Ridley Scott's other movies. You see it kind of coming up in Prometheus.
No!
Alien Covenant.
That's true. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, with the whole David character, like meeting, he's got this thing, like you sort of see like certain things kind of stick in his head over the years, and you kind of like come out again and again, but especially in Alien Covenant.
Is this some self-reflection from Ridley Scott, where he's like, I'm the creator, I'm reflecting on my own stuff, oh, it's disappointing.
Yeah, he probably thinks of himself as God. You can just see him with his big fat cigar, reading all that crap. Like Beavis and Butthead.
We're so happy you found us.
I don't think there's another human being in the whole world who would have helped us.
Rutger Hauer and like all the other replicants, I think, like give really good performances. Brian James,
the star of the film The Horror Show.
Oh, really?
In which he has a little girl held with a knife, with a big blade to her throat.
Right.
Oh, he has Lance Henriksen as the cop, and he's like, let that little girl go, let that little girl go, and he cuts her head off and throws it at Lance Henriksen. And the only reason I bring that up is because I want to cut to a clip of it happening. Unfortunately, it turns out to be a dream.
Wow.
But this is a story for another day when we do a review of the film The Horror Show, a.k.a. House 3.
Oh my God, there was a House 3?
There's a House 4.
What? Would that be The Horror Show too?
You better get it up. I'm gonna have to kill you. Unless you're alive. You can't play, and if you don't play...
But Rutger Hauer.
Oh yeah, Rutger Hauer.
The last scene with Rutger Hauer is the best scene in the movie.
I think the whole like scene in the apartment.
Well, the lead up to it is part of what I find very boring.
Okay.
Once Harrison Ford gets to the, what is it called, the Bradbury Building?
Bradbury Building in L.A.
Yeah, it's a real place.
Yep.
They shot scenes from Avenging Angel there, starring Susan Tyrrell. They throw a baby off of a balcony. Yes. What? They throw a baby off a balcony. And I'm only mentioning this so I can show clips from it. But it's the same building, and Harrison Ford is just wandering around these hallways, and because, for me, I don't care about his character, these scenes are so dull.
Well, okay, Rutger Hauer comes in, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to give you a head start, breaks Harrison Ford's fingers. And this is like some of the best Harrison Ford, I call it the Harrison Ford rubber face acting. It's amazing. You see it earlier on in the movie when he goes and meets the stripper Zora, and he's doing like the funny voice.
Yeah.
And she's like punching him.
This is the Jim Carrey.
It's amazing, and this is what I'm
comparison.
saying. He's like inspiring Jim Carrey with his physical acting, and he does it again when Rutger Hauer breaks his fingers. He's like, and then he's putting his fingers back into joint. You see it a lot. You can actually see it in like a lot of other movies where he's getting punched. I think in like Last Crusade too. It's great. Look out for it.
The Blade Runner is now being
The hunter.
The Blade hunted.
Yeah, Rutger Hauer's fantastic. In this movie, I think in like a lot of his movies, brings this weird quirkiness to like his characters. But he kind of sells this like just a little bit off. He's like kind of crazy, you know. He like strips down. He's wearing these like bicycle shorts, and
That's hurt.
you know, you think he's almost like a cat, like playing with a bird or something. He's being cruel, but you know, he just wants Harrison Ford to feel what it's like to be kind of chased.
Yeah.
And then he kind of saves him.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Is the Rutger Hauer speech, the Tears
Yeah,
in the
the
Rain
Tears in the
speech?
Rain speech was apparently like improvised.
Supposedly that's, somewhat improvised.
Yep.
All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Time to die.
This is it. And this is like, I've only got a few seconds left, and everything that I've seen is going to vanish, and nobody will ever know anything about it. I think it's like very touching, and you can kind of see it in Harrison Ford's eyes that, oh, it's like life actually means something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like actually worth it. And Rutger Hauer, you know, he's been hunting
Unless you view it that Harrison Ford's character is a replicant, and then who cares?
Oh, okay. So talking about that great scene in the original version with the narration, that
the end of the movie?
whole scene. Well, with as soon as Rutger Hauer dies.
Oh, the voiceover comes back?
Holy crap! Does it ever?
God.
And my God.
I don't know why he saved my life. Maybe in those last moments he loved life more than he ever had before. Not just his life. Anybody's life. My life.
I think he realized that life was worth saving and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, God.
I'm not even joking. Like, it is absolutely horrible.
Oh,
and you
man.
have to just play that. And it's awful. Yeah, so like, you know, there's not a perfect cut of Blade Runner anywhere. They should have that, the perfect cut.
There probably is some sort of fan edit.
Oh man, just
like,
take out that one unicorn.
Yeah, take out the unicorn
That's it.
scene.
That's it.
I would say trim the movie down a little bit.
Enhance 224 to 176. Enhance. Stop. Move in. Stop. Pull out track right. Stop. Center and pull back. Stop. Enhance 34 to 36.